Hey, and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Narrative. This is Jeff. We are here on the Daily Narrative today. We are going to talk about violence in the Democrat cities and why the Democrat mayors should be held criminally negligent for what's going on. It's all going to get started right now. Hey, welcome back. All right. So check this out. So this is crazy, right? So what we're looking at here are mostly Democrat cities around the country. Jim Jordan put out a tweet a couple days ago. I think it outlines it perfectly. He said, "Why won't Democrats denounce the violence?" And we don't see Biden denouncing the violence. We haven't seen Kamala Harris denounce the violence. We haven't seen any of the mayors from any of the cities denounce the violence. And which cities are there? Are they? So we have Kenosha, Wisconsin, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Chicago, Illinois, Minneapolis, New York City, Philadelphia, Washington, D.C. All of them, every single one of these cities are run by Democrats. What we saw last night was a travesty, or Thursday night, sorry, was a complete travesty. What we saw Thursday night at the final night of the Republican convention was a travesty afterwards when we saw Rand Paul get attacked, we saw Dan Borgino get attacked, we saw Brandon Straka get attacked. In what world, in what American world do people that go and attend a convention and go walk down the streets of America get attacked because of their political affiliation? That happens in countries like China, North Korea, Iran, Venezuela, Mexico to an extent, other countries where you have a little bit of turmoil, and then you see the intimidation factor. So, but here what we're seeing is all of these mayors of every one of these cities, while their cities are burning, while the citizens, the innocent citizens of their cities, are really being imprisoned in their homes. They can't come out. They're seeing their businesses getting torn down. It's unbelievable that this is even allowed to happen in the United States of America, that these riots, these anarchists, these violent actors are coming out onto the streets and destroying. We saw in Kenosha, they destroyed a car dealership. There's people marching in every one of these streets. They're stealing, they're burning, they're creating mayhem. The left seem to want and embrace the anarchy that's taking place right now, the violence in the streets. Complete anarchy, complete mayhem. Now, why should these mayors be held criminally negligent for what's going on over there? Is it a case? I'm not an attorney. That's for attorneys to decide. However, but for the allowance by the mayors, by the city councils, let the city council members be held criminally negligent as well for not stopping it, for handcuffing the police and making it so that the police cannot protect the citizenry of these cities. It is the city councils that are allowing these riots to take place, that have emboldened the riots and the rioters, that have emboldened the theft, that have emboldened the attack on innocents. What happened in the cities of D.C., where you have Black Lives Matter individuals coming and threatening people that are sitting at restaurants eating, and yet the police aren't anywhere to be found, and yet the city council members in D.C. are embracing that kind of mentality. What we saw in the streets of Kenosha, now it's even coming out, every scenario that we've seen that the world, or the world that we see BLM, and we see these stupid actors and these stupid athletes that are coming to there's some political conclusion that that individuals that are being apprehended by police can somehow fight back against the police. They can be violent against the police. The individual that was shot in Kenosha had a knife, was reaching for a knife. There was a whole situation that had unfolded before that. So why is nobody asking what happened before the 20-second clip that was recorded? What happened up to that point? Why were they there to begin with? Why did they come out to apprehend this individual? Why did this individual fight back? Those are good questions. So now, if you don't ask those questions, if you immediately jump to a conclusion that it's the police that are bad, you allow this narrative to be perpetrated over and over and over and over again. You also have a self-fulfilling prophecy of a police state, because as you begin to riot and burn things down, there is at some point going to be retribution against these bad actors, against these criminals. It's criminal. It is a criminal act to burn down somebody else's property. It's called arson. It's a criminal act to assault somebody, put somebody in fear of bodily harm from you or from a group. That is a crime. Touching somebody is a crime of battery. Assault and battery. You put someone in the imminent fear and you touch them and you hit them. Now that's an assault and battery. Now you put it in a position where you're utilizing a deadly weapon. It could be a skateboard. It could be a stick. It could be a bottle. It could be a bottle filled with cement. It could be whatever it might be that you're throwing at an individual. Those become deadly weapons. Now we saw a whole other scenario unfold. I'm sure it's going to be tried in court. The lawyers are going to discuss it, where you saw an individual that was on the streets as part of a militia group that ended up shooting a few people. Now, the individual that got shot can't be considered an innocent bystander, because he was charging at this individual. There was a group of people chasing this young kid down the street, trying to attack him. Why was he out there? That has to be decided in court, but he wasn't the one threatening. However, the individuals that started chasing him, trying to attack him, were threatening him. So there's a lot of narratives here, but the one consistent theme is that the mayors of these cities, of Kenosha, Portland, Seattle, Chicago, Minneapolis, New York City, Philadelphia, and Washington, D.C., are all negligent in their protection of the citizens of their city. They're allowing mayhem and anarchy to take place in their cities, and to really to turn their cities upside down, to basically wash their hands of the laws that are on the books in every other city in the United States. So, how is it again that but for all of these riots, again, looking at this one scenario of this kid that ended up shooting a few people, but for the riots and the violence and the burning, that kid wouldn't have been there with this small militia group. Why was a small militia group there? Maybe because the police are handcuffed by the city councils and by the mayors of the city. The police can't do what they're supposed to be doing. Now, we don't have to go back that far in history, but maybe a lot of these young kids in the BLM movement are too stupid to really understand, and maybe they're just ignorant, naive, whatever it is. They haven't picked up their phone to educate themselves and to Google things. But you go back in history and you can see the repeat of this narrative over and over and over again by the left. Go back to the Vietnam era. Vietnam, what did the left do to the soldiers that were returning from war? They spit on them. They attacked them. They called them baby killers. Yet individuals, young kids, 18, 19 years old, 20 years old, coming back from war, to have the left attack them, and attack them physically and verbally. And then what did they do? The Democrats and the politicians, the bureaucrats in Washington, what did they do? They decided they wanted to handcuff the military echelon and make it even more difficult for the soldiers to act in combat. So they basically handcuffed them and put them in even further harm's way. Does it sound familiar? It's the exact same narrative. The exact same narrative that's going on right now is that the same ideology, the same mayors that come from the same thought process, many of them were even around back then, or at least some of these politicians were around during the Vietnam era, because some of these politicians are career politicians that have been in Washington or in city council forever, ever. They've been there forever. So it's the same nonsense. You see it coming out of Hollywood. The same actors that were activists during the Vietnam era are the same people now that are trying to handcuff the police. So instead of attacking soldiers, they're attacking the police. It's the same narrative. Now they're saying that the police are all bad. And they have dehumanized, as Nancy Pelosi attempted to dehumanize Republicans by calling them an enemy of the state, a direct threat, a treasonous statement from the Speaker of the House. So you have the exact same thing where you have direct threat, verbally spoken against other citizens, again, vocalizing an assault against citizens by a criminal, and then the police don't do anything because they can't do anything, because if they do something, now they're going to be held and accused of being racist or overreaching. But then these town councils, these city councils, again, are bashing the police, and they're allowing people to throw things at the police. We saw another video where some metal disc was thrown at a police officer and everyone's chanting. Now they've dehumanized these police. What did they have to do? I mean, it's insane. So you have police officers that are sacrificing their lives to protect innocent people on the streets and keep civility and keep the laws, to abide by the laws. And in these Democrat-run cities, they've allowed anarchy to take root. So the more you allow it to happen, the more anarchy is going to happen. There is no freedom any longer in these cities. Freedom of movement for a law-abiding citizen doesn't exist anymore. Why? Because the mob mentality, the mob rule is now in control, and it's being embraced by these city councils and by the mayors. Therefore, the fact that they're fully embracing this mentality, this violence, they need to be held criminally and civilly negligent for what's happening. Allow the lawsuits to unfold. Allow the citizens of the city that have lost their businesses and people that have been physically attacked to now bring suit against city council. Bring suit against these mayors. You see, Wilhelm de Blasio in New York City doesn't care about the citizens of New York City as New York is leaving. It's emptying out. People are leaving in mass. They're leaving in mass from New York City. Well, the crazy thing is, out of all of this, is that the left that is embracing anarchy from the top down, from Nancy Pelosi and all those that are in Washington to each one of these individual cities, they're embracing this anarchy. It's going to turn against them, because at some point the citizens are going to say, we don't want fascism, we don't want anarchy, we don't want totalitarian dictatorships. We're done with you. We're done with the intolerant left, because the left as much as they say they aren't, right? The left has actually fully shown their cards, and their cards is fascism. Their cards are communism. Direct communism. You saw the actions of these people in the streets as they yell obscenities at people, as they attacked Brandon Strzok, walking down and hurling gay slurs at him. But yet, the rest of the gay community on the left are probably going to remain silent against those attacks. It's really a travesty. It really is, as we watch the left implode on themselves. As we see what's happening in Hollywood. These people, it's unbelievable. They've embraced racism. They are racist. Whether they're white or black, those on the left are completely racist. It's truly a travesty, because people are waking up to that fact. People are waking up and they're coming over and they're going to vote for Trump. You know why? Because they don't like what's happening in the cities. They don't like the violence that's taking place in all of these different cities. They don't like the violence that's taking place in Kenosha, Portland, Seattle, Chicago, Minneapolis, New York City, Philadelphia, or Washington, D.C. They don't like the fact that the mayor of Portland won't accept National Guards. It's unreal. And they're going to handcuff, they want to defund the police, they want to remove the police from the streets. Oh, it's just too much. Too much. But anyhow, I appreciate you guys being here. If you like the content, make sure you hit the subscribe button. Give it a thumbs up, thumbs down, some comments below, whatever it is. And we'll check you out on the next episode of the Daily Narrative.